Hello, it's Nikki. Welcome to a brand new episode. I've got a very juicy one for you today, so buckle up, my friend. Let's get into this. Okay, I am so nearly there with my website, and going through the process, it has used many elements of my brain. It's used my analytical brain, it's used my creative brain, it's used my logistical brain, it's used my emotional brain. It's been a very interesting process, really thinking about where I want to go from here and what I want to do. And as I was working out my packages and where I go from here, actually it's going to be kind of more of the same. Sorry, London crazy traffic. It's going to be more of the same. So it's not necessarily feeling like I'm overhauling and I'm doing things differently. Actually, what I'm doing is really refining these processes because I know they work. I'm at this lucky stage now where I'm 10, 15 years in of strategy, and I've done so much training and all kinds of things. So I know that my process works. And that's a really lovely place to get to. And sometimes what can happen when you know the process works, sometimes the temptation is to say, right, I better change the process then. I better do something new. And actually, I am trying to avoid that little niggle of don't let it be too easy, Nikki. But that's another story for another time. So as I was firstly looking at these website packages, I was thinking, is this delivery in service to my business and life? Because I see so many people when they launch a course, they suddenly say, I've now got to offer a freebie. I've got to offer 3 sessions to each person as an incentive. And what ends up happening is that they end up paying about £2.50 for the thing, and then they get all of this free stuff on the side. And what happens is your diary gets super chunky, and you can have that sense of just feeling completely overwhelmed. And it's a lot when you're in that sort of state of mind. So as I was thinking where I want to go over the next year and what I want to do, I was really thinking about, is this the best way that I can deliver my skills, talents, experience, knowledge, expertise, etc.? And I would invite you to ask yourself that in terms of your packages. Are you doing this in the best possible way for your life? And I've also been really analysing what's been happening with clients. So really thinking, because I know people say, right, I just need to sign 3 new clients this month to hit my revenue income goal or whatever it might be. And I'm just plucking those numbers out of thin air. But what can happen is that makes sense if you do the maths, if you get your pen and paper and you do your calculations. But those numbers actually have to be people. And I know you'd be like, Nikki, that's really obvious. Of course they're people. Of course you need the clients to be real. But I think sometimes what can happen, and I've seen this happen a lot, is I've watched other people going, great, you can just tell it's a numbers game. They're actually not interested in working with somebody, or they're not willing to go, say, for example, I had a client last week, and she is in launch mode at the moment. And as part of my prep for that session, I really took time to look at what was happening in her launch. I took the time to go through each social media post, what's happening, read all the comments, what's going on in those ways. And so when you're thinking about how many clients that you want to bring into your world, you have to make sure that you have the capacity not only to do the things that you say that you're going to do, but do them to the standard that you want. And so another thing that came up as well, and this is perhaps one of my values, and really analysing how I purchase or how I invest or how I listen to the end of a podcast or how I really show up. And this is a word that came up again and again, was this feeling of safety. And this is the flip side of the coin in terms of investment, because I know everybody always says invest, up level, accelerate, do all of the things, but you're a human being also. And as you do those things, like I've spoken on this podcast before, that my word of the year is to fly. But also in those moments, I have to find those moments in the week to be able to ground, to be able to center, to bed down, to have an early night, to reflect. And those two things need to work side by side, hand in hand, taking care of each other. So even though I might be saying, go on, kid, you could totally do this. And I do have that kind of friendly friend of a friend coach style sometimes where I'm like, you've got it, go on, send the email, you can do it, because a lot of my long-term clients use my accountability service. So that sense of going, I've got you, I'm holding your hand, go on, go on, go on, you can do this. That's not to say that when they do step out of their comfort zone in bunny ears, or as I do in my own brand, that's not to say there aren't those feelings of like, oh my God, I don't know if I can do this. What? No. This feels enormous. Oh my goodness, this feels so scary. It's bringing up all my stuff, etc. And so knowing that I have those thoughts and feelings and emotions going on when I was thinking about making moves in my own life, I was really thinking, how can I bring this flavor into my website? And some of the ways that I've done that, and you'll see it when it goes live, is that copy, is that voice, is that tone of, I know it's scary. I know you've maybe not done this before, but you're going to be in safe hands. And it led me back, and this was so ironic that I was thinking about this person, and it always happens. I was thinking about a person who I had a discovery call with in about 2013, I believe. And I'd seen her being interviewed on a podcast, because I was listening to podcasts at that time, or, on a YouTube video. I'd seen her interview. I'd definitely seen her face. So perhaps it was a YouTube video interview style. And I was so inspired by this woman, and she had been coaching for many years, and she had a really smiley face. And I just thought, oh, okay, great. And I'd never worked with somebody paying that big chunk of money before. And I was trying to navigate areas of my personal life and my career life at that time. And I knew that I needed help. And I remember plucking up the courage after another sort of semi-average day and going, I'm going to fill out that discovery form. I'm going to do it. I feel terrified, but I'm going to do it. And I remember just going, right, send. Okay, let's see. Because again, going back to that safety sense, that sense of saying something out loud. And I've got a brilliant client, and if you're listening to this, sometimes she will leave me voice notes that say, I'm saying this because I just need to say it out loud. Because if I say it out loud, it starts to become real, yes. And I completely agree with that. I think sometimes you just have to unleash it slightly. You have to put it out there, and then it starts to grow organically. And sorry, there's crazy traffic again and again. Anyway, so back to the story. I heard back from her team, and they booked in a session, and I blocked out the time in my diary. I was there like the studious chick I am, of pen and paper, and I was ready. And the woman was so not what I thought she was going to be. And perhaps this was not a match because maybe I wasn't her ideal client, and, of course that's fair enough. But this person made me feel awful. And I came off the call and I just sobbed. I burst into tears. It was such an awful experience. And I can go back and self-analyze and go, maybe I was just being oversensitive. And when you've reacted in a different way, but really looking at it logically, I just think that she was quite rude. And I don't do this, like you've listened to the podcast for a long time. I don't badmouth other people. And that's why I will never, ever reveal this person's name. And basically what she said to me on this call was that I was going to be a lot of work because there was so much to do. There were so many areas of my life that clearly I needed support in. And she offered me a package which was enormous at that time. I think it was probably more than what I was earning a year. So again, there wasn't alignment in terms of her ideal client. Some people would have been like, yeah, sure, no problem. I'll just throw that out there and I'll just pay the deposit now. And I just wasn't in that position. Also, I wasn't familiar with being sold to necessarily. And it felt like a huge shock at the end of it, where I was like, oh my goodness, she wants me to pay the deposit now. And usually I've been that person, and I still am to a certain extent. I rarely make kind of like snapshot decisions, especially if it was, for that certain amount of money, I would really need to sit down and think about it because I didn't have it. I didn't know how that was going to happen. And at the end of the call, because I didn't sign up and give her the deposit over the phone, she basically was very cross and sort of had said I wasted her time, essentially. And it all just felt really funky. It all felt really weird. And I was thinking about what could have happened if the opposite had gone on, where she would have focused on my potential, on my willingness to learn, on my faults, I guess. The fact that I'm not perfect, the fact that I was willing to give it a go and do the work. What would happen if she was in that space? What would have happened if she'd been encouraging? Because what she was doing was coming from the expert status. But she wasn't coming from the expert status of side by side, like, let's work this through together. She was at the other end of the castle, sitting and bellowing some orders, and I was kind of scurrying around. That's the kind of visual that I had anyway. And the power play just felt all wrong. And it has to be a relationship. Anyway, let's get to the point, Nikki. This woman reached out, and I'm saying reached out because it was one of those reach out emails. It was a reach out email of inviting me to a discovery call with her. And I was bold, and I did something that I've never done before. I deleted the email and I deleted the contact. And again, I feel really weird even saying this to you right now because I'm not that person. But I thought if I replied, or even if I said no, thank you, I'd feel like there was so much more to say. I feel like I'd have to say, by the way, did you know in 2013 that you made me feel like this, this, and this? Because maybe she was having a bad day. Maybe, there was other stuff going on. But also, it would have been perhaps meaningless to her. And that did not need to be even though I'm telling you this story now, that didn't need to be her impression of me right now. Because it could be that I end up on a panel with her, or I see her in a different guise, or something happens, and there could be all kinds of things going on. And so respectfully, what I wanted to do is just remove myself from that situation. So this is a very long-winded way of saying, what is the copy? What's the tone? What's the conversation that you are having in your online presence? And I had this dawning a couple of weeks ago, and I may have even said it on the podcast, that we can't rely on face-to-face networking anymore. We can't rely on a friend or a referral or anything like that, because so much of what we do is online. We're not going out. I'm not going to those events that I used to go to, fancy places in East London where you would meet loads of influencers and all kinds of people. We're not having that face-to-face contact. So your tone, your impression that you leave with people, your conversation essentially that has been happening when somebody potentially looks at your services at 3:00 in the morning, it has to look and feel like you. It has to really speak to your ideal client so they feel safe before purchasing. because we are new in this conversation. So many of us, we remember our time without the internet, without digital services, and we were taught, certainly I was taught, money was about buying a nice top on a Saturday night. If you had a spare bit of cash, you might buy an extra lipstick, or you'd spend it on shoes, or you would fritter it away in some kind of way. You do something rash with it. You buy something silly. And actually, I haven't done that since I've made more money. I am going to talk about this in a later episode because I think it's really important. But equally, for somebody to invest in themselves, it takes the money, of course. It takes the commitment. It takes a sense of belief in yourself. But especially if you share money with somebody, it takes awkward conversations potentially. It requires you to be accountable in a different kind of way. And I'm sure if I share with some people who are nearest and dearest to me how much I spent on coaching last year, they might be slightly horrified. But do I regret it? Do I regret betting on myself? Absolutely no way. Because my business wouldn't be what it is today. And that's not necessarily linking back to that one person and method and things like that, because there are definitely things that I could have done in a different way, or they could have done in a different way. But this is about me saying I'm going all in. And when you make these decisions about purchasing, they can't be based on you feeling scared. They can't be based on you going, well, everybody else is doing that, so maybe I do. You have to do it with integrity. And I tell you what, when you spend that money, whatever it is, and this could be a tenner on an online course that you know that you need to do. I'm just about to sign up for something in a couple of minutes, actually, when I finish with this. And I know it's what I need. But also, when I've looked at this course online, there are some elements in there that I know that I'm going to have to do that work. And I'm not going to want to do that work because it's not in my zone of genius. Or there's other things that I would rather be doing. Or it's maybe there's parts of it that I procrastinate about. No, my friend, I know that I need to do the stuff. I know I need the framework to support me within that. So that's what I want to say. Are you showing up in that way that you would if somebody met you in person? Are you showing up with kindness? Are you understanding fully that this might be scary for this person? This might be the first time that they've bet on themselves, that they've finally gone, do you know what? I'm going to do that. And certainly when I was seeing clients face to face, I was always flabbergasted by the end of the session where somebody would say, oh, that felt so good to say that out loud. I've never really told anyone that before. And I used to look at them each time and go, you've never told anyone that before. And then sometimes they would burst into tears. Because the relief of saying makes me emotional. The relief of saying what it is that you actually want and starting to bring it to life is really magical. And also terrifying. Okay, I'm going to leave it there today. Thank you so much for listening, as always. But yeah, I urge you, have a look at your copy. Have a look at how you're having a conversation with people. Even if you're not feeling like you're even having conversations with clients yet, even though you feel like nobody's even looking at your stuff or they're not looking at your stuff enough, they will. It's all coming. It's all on its way. But thank you. Thank you for listening as always. The website, I think, will be with you this week. How exciting. As always, rate, review, subscribe and share with somebody. I would love that. I'm sending you lots of love. And yeah, I wish I could give you a hug. Or maybe you could give me one after this short little outburst. Anyway, lots of love. I'll speak to you soon. Bye.